Peas are a cool weather crop. It's late October now and most of our hot weather is behind us. Now is when we in milder winter zones, typically in the southern part of the United States, start to plant our peas. Now, if you live in a cold winter climate, then you'll probably start thinking about this in late winter or early spring. But you can brush up on these tips now and be ready when the time comes. Peas can actually take a bit of frost and can be planted in late winter or early spring, about a month before your last frost date. Peas have to be up there in terms of taste, right up there with tomatoes. Like, you can't get a good tasting tomato from the store. I would say you can't get a good tasting pea from the store either. Let me know if you agree. Also, let me know if you've only had peas frozen or canned. And if that's the case, grow your own. You are in for a huge surprise because they shouldn't even be called the same name. There are 3 types of peas you can grow: snow peas, snap peas, and shelling peas. Now, shelling peas are the type of pea where you eat the peas inside the pod, not the outer part. You shell that off. So most of the pale grayish green things that are frozen or canned at the store are shelling peas. That doesn't mean they taste the same, but you're eating the inside part, not the outside part. The snow pea pod is edible, and they're picked just as the tiny peas inside are barely showing through the shell. And snap peas are basically in the middle of a shelling pea and a snow pea. They actually have a great snap that you can hear when you snap them in half. The pods are edible, but they can be a bit fibrous sometimes. All right, let's get to sowing the seeds. I'm gonna put them in the bed that housed the squash, the cucumbers, and the tomatoes this summer. And the reason I'm doing that is I've already got a trellis built right in, and I've already got the strings and hooks that I use for those, that I also use for tomatoes, already up there. They're already ready to go. So I took the squash out, I've prepared the ground with a couple inches of compost, and the soil is now ready to plant in. I'm gonna be planting the back of this bed the whole way down. Now, peas don't need full sun. They don't need like 8 hours or more. In fact, they probably can get by on less, more like 6. They like it cool, and some extra shade as the weather starts to warm up in spring is going to extend the season of these peas, because as soon as they start to dry out, they're gonna start to turn brown and crispy from the bottom, and at that point, it's almost all over. The second thing you need to focus on is fertilizing, and peas are gluttons when it comes to fertilizing. They love nitrogen. I'm gonna put some granular organic fertilizer in the trench before planting. Once the peas are up and growing, they're gonna start to pull nitrogen out of the air and fix it in their roots, and they'll be able to live on some of that as well, but they are heavy feeders. Now, I mentioned that it's best to grow peas from seed. You can grow from transplants from the garden center, but you need so many plants to get a really good harvest that it would really be a lot more cost effective to plant from seed. And they're really easy to grow from seed. The seeds are really big, so they're a really good crop to plant with kids. And you want to sow these seeds close together. I place 2 every inch or so along a row, and then I put the rows maybe a foot apart. And I just sit them on top of the soil where I can see where they are, and then I'll go back and push them into the soil about a ½ inch to 1 inch deep. Cover them with soil and water them in well. Like I said, peas are really greedy, so every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the growing season, it's great to add some organic liquid fertilizer. That's gonna keep them producing. Another thing that will keep them producing is to continually pick the peas. Seems like an easy enough thing to do, but a lot of people miss that step, and they don't really pick as often as they need to, because the more you pick, the more they're gonna produce. Once you stop picking, the plant is gonna say, okay, I've made all my seeds, here they are, they're gonna set, and I can die. You don't want that. I get the question often if I inoculate my peas or any of the legumes that I plant, and that just means you either soak the seeds with a fungi like a mycorrhiza, or you bury the mycorrhiza with the seeds. I don't do that. I've done it both ways and I've never noticed a difference. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. I just think it's an extra step, it's an extra cost, and again, I didn't notice much difference. So from the day of sowing seeds till they're about 8 inches tall, they're gonna be a prime target for birds. Birds love those new tender pea plants. And so I'm gonna be using my new best friend, tulle. You can get this at any fabric store. I got mine at Walmart, and I got black to kind of have it disappear into the garden. This is the material they use for wedding dresses and tutus. You could also cover them with floating row covers or fleece if you have that on hand. Another thing is peas are vining crops, so they need something to climb on. Now, if you plant them in groupings, you can have them grow up a teepee made from sticks, branches, or twigs. If you plant them in a row like me, you're going to need to provide a trellis that's 4 to 6 feet tall, depending on the variety of pea you have. A cattle panel is an easy solution, zip tied to a couple of T-posts driven in the ground. Stick around to the end of the video and I'll show you where you can find the instructions for that. For shorter varieties, you can just cut sticks from other plants that have a lot of branches. That branching habit of these stakes give the peas something to grab onto. Before we moved, I grew mine on my tomato trellis. Since peas grow in the opposite season of tomatoes, I took the bamboo canes and leaned them against the trellis every foot or so on both sides, and the peas covered the entire thing by May. Last year I used the tomato trellis as well, but instead of using the bamboo canes, I just let the peas grow up the strings and hooks that the cucumbers and tomatoes did in the summertime. I'm doing the same thing this year. I just bring those strings down to the ground, secure them with a landscape staple, and those peas will climb right up. They may have to search for the strings a little bit in the beginning, but they will find them and they will grow up and make a nice wall of peas. And my strings are about a foot apart. You don't have to have one string per pea plant. They'll figure it out. Keep them well watered when it's not raining. Continue to fertilize every 3 weeks or so. And in a couple of months, you're going to have really green, lush plants with tons of beautiful pea flowers and really great, crisp, sweet peas that you can eat right in the garden or take in the house and cook. You can even eat the pea shoots, and those are just the little ends that are growing. They contain the flower buds and maybe a tendril or two, a couple of leaves. You can snap those off and mix them into salads, or they're great stir-fried. That's actually an especially good tip for those of you in cold winter climates. You might have time by planting now to get to the pea shoot stage where the freeze might come before you get to the actual pea stage. And the pea shoots, I'm telling you, are almost as good as the peas. For a super cheap and easy pea trellis, click this video right here, and I'll see you guys next time.